Hi, I'm Lissy Alden and I'm pregnant. I'm also the founder of Mindy, a mental fitness company here to help you win the moment. Now, I've spent 15 years studying stress and performance, and during my master's at MIT, I specifically studied culture and behavior and how to change it at places like Google. And today, I'm going to show you 10 tools and the science behind them that are going to help you manage those overthinking moments. And by the end of this video, you'll have a toolkit so when you're up at 2 a.m. and your brain won't shut up, you'll know exactly what to do. Okay, it's 2 a.m., you're awake, and your beautiful, spectacular, overachieving brain has decided that right now is the perfect moment to freak out about that text from your boss earlier today, replay the embarrassing laugh you had when you forgot to hit mute during that meeting, and remind you about those crazy symptoms you forgot to message your doctor about. Pregnancy, am I right? Your brain never sleeps. Fun fact, never shuts off. Here's something that nobody tells you. You cannot think your way out of anxious thinking. You cannot logic your way into calm. When overthinking happens, you're not dealing with an intellectual problem. You're dealing with an autonomic nervous system problem. So here's the question. What if you could use your body to outsmart your brain? Fix number one for overthinking, let's call it the sour candy party. Now, given my current propensity in pregnancy for eating, well, everything, this is one of my favorites. So what is it? It's basically a sensory experience that gives your brain something so overwhelming that it's impossible to ignore. Fun fact, anxiety lives in the past or the present, but sour flavors live in the here and now. This is a tough job, but someone's got to do it. Shall we? I haven't had one of these since I was a kid. Watermelon extreme sour. So how this works is you pop a piece of sour candy. Okay, seriously? Whoa. I think I'm on another planet. Oh. Whoa. Let's get into the research. Evgeny Sokolov is one of the founding fathers of modern psychophysiology, or the relationship between your mental processes and your physical bodily reactions. In his 1963 foundational research, he found that novel, intense, or surprising stimuli immediately interrupt cognitive processing. In other words, it basically wipes the cognitive slate clean. So your brain can't physiologically ruminate and process intense stimuli at the same time, like sour flavors. So it's not really a cure for the anxious thoughts, but rather a nudge in the right direction. Fun fact, the more intense the flavor, the greater the pattern interrupt, the greater the effect and ability for this little tiny candy to do its thing. Do you prefer chewing instead? Don't worry, I'm not going to suggest sour gum. Just simply chewing gum has been proven to reduce cortisol and anxiety during stressful situations. So if you don't really like a warhead and you prefer to chew gum, that works. But sour works faster and is more disruptive, which is exactly what your spiral needs to stop. All right, go ahead, set aside the candy. We're going to need your hands free for the next one. All right, quick fix 2 for overthinking. I call it the bakery sniff. The more scientific name is the physiological sigh. So what it is basically 2 quick sniffs in through your nose and 1 long exhale through your mouth. That's it. So let's do a quick demonstration. As if you are walking by a bakery and need to make sure. And then the longest extended exhale you can do safely. 1 more. Fun fact, this breath had a competition in 2023 at Stanford. And basically what they found was that it beat meditation big time in its ability to calm people down very, very quickly, which I find kind of funny. Why does this work? Well, your exhale is tied to your parasympathetic nervous system, which is your rest and digest or calming nervous system. So the longer the exhale, the more calm gets activated in your body. The double inhale maximally inflates your lungs so that you have maximum exhales to work with. Do you want an even simpler version? All you got to do is inhale for a certain amount of seconds and exhale at double that length. So inhale for 4 seconds, exhale for 8 seconds. Got it? Same mechanism. Try it out. All right, fix number 3, the tense and release protocol. What you'll do is you're going to intentionally tense every single part of your body and then release really quickly. Your nervous system will overshoot you into intense relaxation mode. So to start, pick one. You can pick your jaw, you can pick your shoulders, you can pick your fists. I'll pick my fists just because it looks extra exciting and aggressive on camera. I want you to clench this part of your body, in my case my fist, as hard as I can for 5 seconds. And then release. There's a famous psychologist named Edmund Jacobson who in 1938 basically figured this out. And it's one of the most replicated stress techniques in all of psychology. What's the mechanism? It's called reciprocal inhibition. When you tense hard and release, your nervous system shoots you hard into relaxation on the other end of that. With 80 plus years of peer-reviewed studies, it basically is a technique older than television, and it still works. Overthinking fix number 4 is what we like to call the vagus nerve reset. Now this one's quite simple. We're basically going to be humming. Now before you think absolutely no, stick with me. This one's extra fun. This one's based on Stephen Porges' polyvagal theory. And basically what he found is that humming vibrates the vagus nerve, which is the main line between your brain and your calm down system, which directly activates your parasympathetic or rest and digest response and gets you to just calm down really fast. Fair warning, don't do this in an open plan office unless you want to be thrown out or called crazy. Unless you tell them Lissy sent you and that there's a peer-reviewed paper or 2 on this one. So you'll notice I'm wearing a different outfit. I'd like to say outfit change halfway through, but the real truth is that half of these videos did not tape with sound, and therefore I was forced to use all 10 of these fixes to stop my spiraling right before I had to retape and start over a couple days later. So here we are. We're gonna hit the back half of the video in a separate outfit, new attitude, with all of these tools at play, at work, and ready to rock. Fix 5. Sensory anchoring. This is about using all 5 senses to anchor yourself in the present moment where anxiety cannot survive. So how this works is you're gonna look around the room and see if you can notice 5 things that you can see. So in this case, we've got a frame, a pillow, my nose, that camera, and that light. Then I want you to think about 4 things you can hear. In my case, we've got cars going by, the buzz of the air conditioner, someone walking in the apartment above me, and the refrigerator hum. Then there's 3 things you can touch. You can touch my sweater, you can touch my hair, and this pillow. 2 things you can smell, the eggs I cooked this morning and the bagel that I toasted this morning. And 1 thing I can taste, the coffee I'm drinking. So why does this work? Well, anxiety only exists in the past or the future. It can't exist in the present moment. And when you anchor yourself in your 5 senses to really notice what's happening around you with every single one of your senses, anxiety can't possibly survive that. Because sensory tasks force your prefrontal cortex to go back online. And this action competes directly with your amygdala, which is that fight or flight response, which can't possibly be in action if you're thinking this way. This is all based on research done by Marshall Linehan, the founder of DBT, or dialectical behavioral therapy. Now here's a bonus challenge. If you're still spiraling, go ahead and count backwards from 100 by 7s. So we're at 100, 93, 86. I'll let you complete that one on your own. But again, similarly, we're really anchoring you in the present moment, and that task could be so difficult for some, including me. It's really hard to compete with your nervous system. This task overloads your working memory so that your rumination loop can't possibly exist at the same time. You cannot spiral and do math. Fun fact. Fix number 6, the slow scan. Slowly scanning your nervous system with relaxed eyes and your peripheral vision sends your nervous system the oldest signal in the mammalian playbook, that nothing is chasing us. Stand down. So how this works is you're going to slowly activate your peripheral vision, or looking sideways, and scan your environment slowly. And really notice, what do you see? In my case, I see bookshelf, umbrella stand, carpet, and then go back again. So according to Peter Levine's somatic experiencing framework and the polyvagal theory we mentioned earlier, slow and relaxed visual scanning signals to your nervous system that there is no threat at all, that everything is okay, and that you can, again, stand down. Fun fact, what they've shown is that when we are stressed, often our peripheral vision goes away and our eyes narrow. And this doesn't just happen with our vision, it happens with our thoughts. We tend to narrow in on the one thing that's wrong. So by physically expanding what you're seeing, in many ways, you're intellectually expanding what you can think. So with that, scan your environment, people. It's gonna calm you down. Fix number 7, name that feeling. Sounds kind of like a game show. So what this is it's really about saying 3 little words that once you say out loud, measurably reduces your brain's alarm response. 3 words, that's the intervention. Here they are. I feel stressed, or I feel anxious, or whatever the word is, fill in the blank. It's like a Mad Lib. Be real and be honest. And if you need to close your eyes and see what comes up for you, that counts too. I've mentioned this before, but grown-ups have a hard time with emotional granularity, or getting specific around the feelings that we have. We tend to default to happy, sad, or my favorite, fine. In this case, the more specific you can be, the better. Here's why it works. Matthew Lieberman at UCLA did an MRI study, and what he found was when people labeled their emotions, the amygdala activity noticeably decreased in real time on the scan. They now call this affect labeling, or name it to tame it. And how this works is you basically go from being inside the anxiety to observing it from the outside with that label. And fun fact, observed anxiety is much less powerful than felt anxiety. Naming it is the intervention. Crazy, no? Fix 8, my lucky number. This is called the temperature shift. What this is all about creating a shift in your temperature, which triggers a hardwired parasympathetic nervous system response, which is your rest and digest, to calm you down immediately. And hot little tip, cold water works fastest. The research here is interesting. It's based on what's called the mammalian dive reflex. Think about a dolphin. When it goes into really cold water, it has to remind itself that it is not a bad thing. It needs to calm down and everything's okay. The same thing actually happens in our body when we wash our face with cold water. It triggers an autonomic response that tells your body to calm down, that everything is okay. You may not be a dolphin, but your nervous system doesn't know that. So your heart rate drops, and your body calms down. The broader principle here is that your nervous system is thermally responsive. A temperature change equals new information. The cool part about this fix is that it tends to be free. You can use it anywhere. And, well, that's all I got. Fix 9. Schedule your worry. This is a wild one. When anxiety or spinning or overthinking shows up, you can schedule that to another time in your day or postpone this emotion, because it turns out worrying actually responds to calendar invites, unlike your boss. So I want to acknowledge before demonstrating this that this probably sounds like something that a productivity influencer came up with while color coding their Google Calendar. But research backs this one up, so giddy up. All you got to do is open up your computer, set up an invite that says worry time. If you want something incognito, you could say something like me time. Shut her down and say, not now, stress. We have an appointment at 6 p.m. Tom Borkovic at Penn State University did the research here. And this is part of what's called stimulus control therapy. The mechanism at play here is that anxiety is partially maintained by the belief that it is out of your control. And one successful postponement showing that you have agency and you're back in the driver's seat with it is enough for it to loosen its grip on you. Your brain begins to learn, we don't need to process this right now. We have time for this later. And you can push it to the side. Sometimes something as simple and mundane as a calendar invite can change the game. And yes, I set a calendar invite for this morning to worry about retaping today. Fix 10, spiral with a spiral. Now, this is a fun one, which is really all about writing it down. Once you can write something down, it's all about getting something out of your head and onto a surface where you can observe a thought as opposed to be the thought. How this works is you go ahead and you just start writing. Now, you can call it journaling, you can call it writing. I usually put time on the clock for between 1 and 3 minutes and just write anything that's on my mind at this point. In highly replicable research by James Pennebaker at UT Austin, who's been studying this since 1986, and by the way, there's been over 400 studies looking at the same thing. Writing about emotional experiences not only reduced anxiety in the moment, but it also led to better immune function and a lowered stress response. And all this came from writing on old-fashioned paper for just a couple minutes. Because again, when you write things down, you move from being in the thoughts around anxiety to being able to observe them. 400 studies, one pen, come on, let's do this. So here's a bonus if all else fails. Sometimes it's all about refusing to stay in the same environment where that spiral started. It's about getting up and going outside. But your brain creates really tight loops between where you are and your emotional state. And when you get up and leave the room, you tend to break that cycle of thought. Now, an even more powerful thing to do isn't just leaving the room, it's actually getting outside in the air. We've got temperature change at play, we've got a shift in perspective. Why does this work? Because environmental cues trigger different emotional states. And changing context gives your nervous system a new set of inputs. Getting outside and touching grass isn't just a vibe, it's actually peer reviewed. And here's why all 10 of these work. You just chewed candy, you hummed, we splashed cold water on our face. Let's again remind you why this works. All 10 techniques do one of two things. They either go through your body to reach your nervous system very directly, or they go through your cognition to bring your thinking brain back online. Both paths lead to the same place. Out of the state of alarm and into a place of regulated calm. Through your breath, through your muscles, through your environment, your alarm system responds well to signals. You just have to give it the right ones. That is not a metaphor. That's research and science. So your anxious brain is not broken. It's doing exactly what it was designed to do. Keep you alive, keep you alert, and keep you aware of every possible threat. Your brain means well, but now you've got 10 ways to tell it, I'll take it from here. Pick one this week. Just one. Try it when the spiral starts, when things get really loud up there, and notice what happens. And if you've tried everything on this list and the anxiety is still winning, that's information too. Please talk to someone. It's kind of like I say an athlete jumping on a sprained ankle, and if it keeps hurting, you probably got to see a doctor. If this was useful, subscribe or check out last week's video. See you next week. And remember, your nervous system is doing its absolute best.